Welcome back to Smile Jamaica. This morning, we're joined by former president of the Jamaican Bar Association and partner of Duncox. He's Emil Leiber, and he's going to help us understand the legality of making vaccines mandatory, as well as to shed some light for us on the pros and cons of that process. Good morning, Emil. Welcome to Smile.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's a discussion we can't avoid because it's happening in other parts of the world. People are saying if you don't have it, you can't travel, you can't come. It's something that I don't think we can avoid. But let's talk about the legality of it. Just what is the scope for the government? I'll start at the government level first. To say you have to be vaccinated.
Well, the interesting thing to note is that mandatory vaccinations have been around in Jamaica since 1986. So it's actually nothing new to Jamaica. Under the public health immunization regulations, it's a duty of every parent to immunize. So in Jamaica, we're more used to the term immunize, to immunize your child, and it is mandatory for a child to be immunized before going to school. And if your child is not immunized, unless they have what they call contraindications, some reason why they shouldn't be vaccinated from a health perspective, then that child is going to be removed from the school or not admitted to the school. So in regard to children in Jamaica, we have had mandatory vaccinations since 1986. So all
So
that
there's
would
a
be
precedent.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was
Yes.
saying, so there's a precedent.
There is.
So then what is the stumbling block here? You think this is just a matter of, I'm going to say politics, and I mean that loosely. What seems to be stopping us from taking that step? Or are there entities that have gone that far? I'm not sure if there are entities that have yet. I know some are weighing, and the business sector is weighing it. But what do you see as the stumbling block, and do you think we'll eventually get there?
Well, I think the thing is that we have the immunization requirements in Jamaica are in respect of what I call very established diseases, very established immunization protocols, and so on. So, we have our mumps, measles, rubella, and that type of thing. The thing with COVID, I think, from the medical standpoint, which needs to influence the legal standpoint, is that it's a developing story when it comes to both vaccines, the effect of the vaccines, as well as the effect of the disease itself. And then you have another wrinkle where this is now adult vaccination that you're speaking of, as versus infant vaccination. Now, in law, though, a child doesn't have any fewer rights than an adult, but the parent is responsible for the child and the child's decision making in the law until the child is 18. So introduction of adult vaccinations, where you are saying to an adult now that you need to do this, now is going to be a little different. So the public health regulations makes it an offense for a parent to not vaccinate a child, or for a child to be admitted without just school without being vaccinated. I said that there's a fine for that. So you could say that there are two sanctions. So they have criminalized it to a very limited degree, and they have spoken about prevention of getting an education, which is essential to a child. So the question you're going to have for adult vaccination is, are you going to also criminalize that, and or are you going to make it some kind of prerequisite to access the kind of government services? Because that's what they tried with NIDS.
Yes.
So recall the original NIDS structure was that if you don't engage in this process, then you are not going to be able to access public services. And so if they were to go the route of mandatory vaccination for adults, that is likely the approach that would be taken.
But Emil, I want to ask, at the core of both, whether you're a child or an adult, is the issue of public health, right? Is the issue of endangering others? Is the issue of acting in the public interest and for public good? They're saying in the U.S. no, and I think perhaps I've heard the PM say that this COVID-19 is now essentially this third wave has made COVID a disease of the unvaccinated. And so persons who are carrying around, especially this strain, essentially are they're akin to loaded weapons. I don't know. Is that going too far? You tell me.
Um,
I mean, you are a potential risk to somebody else, even not somebody who's vaccinated, but especially somebody who's not. We don't have the luxury now of vaccinating our children, so we're putting them at risk. Folks who have underlying conditions, who may be immunocompromised persons, why should we not make it a prerequisite or a mandate for them to take the necessary responsibility to act in the public good?
I'm wary of giving medical advice, but based on my reading in this area, this is the difficulty with that type of argument. The vaccinated do catch and do spread COVID based on my reading. What it is that the vaccinated are less likely to be hospitalized and die.
Right.
So being vaccinated helps you more than it helps anybody else. It actually does not necessarily, as I understand it, preclude you from spreading, but it protects you the most. So it is in a way, now to the extent that it is a public health greater good type of issue, it is in the benefit of the country as a whole that people are not hospitalized, that people are not using up our very limited public health resources. And, there's the argument that had they been vaccinated, they would not now need to use up those resources. And so there is a greater good in ensuring a greater degree of vaccination. But then you also have the Jamaican reality that certainly from where I sit, you don't even have
Enough
vaccines for everyone who wants to be vaccinated. So you have not even fulfilled that voluntary pool of persons.
Right.
To
Right.
vote same, let's make it mandatory.
So when you're getting into mandatory presumes that it's available to everybody,
Right.
easily and readily available, and you are now choosing not to do it.
Right.
But the Jamaican reality right now is that you don't even have enough to fulfill for everybody who wants to be vaccinated.
Yeah. Question, Emil.
Yeah.
Say the government decides to take that route. How is a law like that going to be passed? Does it come through the act that's now in place in terms of disaster risk management, or is it something that has to go constitutionally? What happens?
All right. Under the Public Health Act, the minister has the power to make regulations, as they did in 1986, regarding vaccinations. So it is a regulation, is what they call subsidiary legislation, and so it is much easier for it to become law. Where the Constitution comes in is only if it is challenged.
Okay.
Right? So similarly, the DRM orders again are subsidiary legislation, and they remain law and they remain valid unless and until somebody decides to go to court to say, I don't think the passage of this law is in keeping with the Constitution and it's in breach of my constitutional rights. But the Constitution really only comes in two ways. That one, the government should only pass laws that are consistent with the Constitution, but also if in the event of a challenge, more than likely if someone is going to challenge the validity of the law, is going to be in the context of this law is not reasonably justified and infringes my rights. Because if you look at the DRM order that the government has been relying on for over a year now, these laws impinge upon your freedom of movement. One could even say your freedom to worship and religion and so on. And there have been various discussions about that. But I think everyone has reasonably accepted that these restrictions on your rights are justified and are required for public good, public health, etc. So thus far, no one has sought to challenge the validity of those orders.
All
I
right.
find it interesting. Did we get the wrap? Because I do.
Yeah.
Okay, I find it interesting that Lisa said no. That you said, Sir Emile, that you think moral suasion, public education, incentivizing persons to take the vaccine, and adjusting the mask-wearing mandate for already vaccinated persons could go a far way in getting more jabs in arms. Do you really believe that? Because we don't seem to have been doing a good job with moral suasion, public education, people owning personal responsibility. You are hopeful that if we do more of that, we could get a better compliance rate with folks
Um,
opting?
I think if we, Jamaica is an interesting place culturally in the sense that, you have some people who we kind of blend religious views. This is the mark of the devil and the mark of the beast, and is a, government thing. We have a lot of kind of inherent suspicion of things. And then, in fairness, there's a lot of what fuels that is there's a lot of uncertainty, unknowns. This is something new, this is something different. And so, I think over time, when people see that you're not collapsing and dying when you take the vaccine, you're not growing a third arm, you're not
Or a
suddenly,
third big toe?
or a third big toe, that this actually is okay, and I think that type of, you know, um, person to person interaction. I know somebody who took it and they're okay, and I spoke to them and they're okay.
Yeah.
And I think that probably is likely to kind of be most effective,
Okay.
where people see the people in their communities taking it, and that everything is fine. And in fact, when you may have perhaps have a situation where you see a outbreak, and the ones who are vaccinated seem to be fine, and the ones who are not are the ones who end up in an expensive hospitalization process, then I think that may incentivize.
All right. We have to go, Sir Lai, but thank you so much
No
for your
problem. No
thoughts this
problem.
morning. Appreciate your time and helping us clarify this. Behavior change, Harris, you always say, is something that's it's going to take time and culturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Emile Leiber, past president of the Jamaican Bar Association and partner at Dunkirk. What's up next, lady?
Up next, we're going to give you all the details on the exam relief aid. Please stay with us.